Hey everyone, I am TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where we talk Nintendo and gaming news from the past month. And we're in the dark times, aren't we, Kai? There's not a whole lot happening, but that's alright with us, because backlog, baby! We've been playing through it, we've been going at it. Not to mention, there have been a few small little bits we've got to talk about here, and something very significant to Kai that happened this month, which, yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has been, yeah. I mean, as you say, we are in that period where, like, a new console is almost certainly on the horizon now, as we talked about previously. So not many things are being announced, not many games are coming out, although a few. So we're just like waiting for something substantial to happen, and as you say, great time to get that backlog completed.
Absolutely, but let's just get started with the first segment of the podcast, and I'll remind you that timestamps are in the description below if you want to check out the different ones. But first of all, we have Can't Have a Podcast Without News Baby, where we go over said news highlights, and one of the benefits of me picking the news topics is that I get to pick things that no one else would have included. So, just tailored to me specifically, we found out that Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is getting an anime adaptation, which is something I really didn't expect to see, because I thought this was just one of the most underrated games that came out. Oh God, when was it even? 2020?
Yeah, it's quite niche.
It's been a while now. Yeah, and I loved it, and it was a serious contender for my game of the year that year. And it sort of teases the potential of a sequel focusing around in one of the other characters. So I was, fingers crossed that we'd get that in a few years' time. Anime adaptation wasn't on my bucket list or my wanted list, but hell yeah. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think there's a lot of personality in the game and ways that they could flesh out moments. It'll be interesting to see exactly how they tackle it, since a lot of the game is you sort of go to your areas throughout the time schedule as the seasons pass, in whichever sort of way you want, and you go back and forth and then go back and get a little bit further. So obviously they're going to have to condense things and add story to parts that are just gameplay, but I think there's a lot of potential there for having a really charming little series. I'm guessing you don't know really anything about this, Kai, but...
No, not really. I know incredibly little about the game, but it's very cool to hear. Like, I feel like for any game, when you hear it's getting an adaptation, could always go wrong, to be fair, but it's generally a good thing that it's like, wow, this thing I like is having more thing. It's good. So, the question is how they do it. What route are they going to take? Is Rice and Ruin a particularly story-focused game, or...?
Well, I think that's kind of the interesting thing, is it's got a very solid story to it about this goddess character who sort of as a punishment is sort of sent to this island with these humans and sort of has to, as she's on this island, sort of learning to get along with them, she's also discovering things about her family and what happened to her father, because this island has big connections to him. So there's definitely a big story to unravel, but there's also... We're not talking Xenoblade, or something like that. But I think that... Yeah, but I think that works because it means there's lots of potential for them to add bits and to expand. So there's a really solid foundation, but a lot of room where they can mess around with things and adding new characters and stuff without it being like, why didn't they stick to the source material? It's plenty flexible while still having that initial interest in there. So I think it's the kind of perfect thing, really, to get that sort of adaptation. And, hopefully it does well. We don't even know if it's getting like a dub or not, but I'll watch it subtitled, I don't care. It's just, like I said, it's been a while since I played this game and thought about it, so getting to re-experience the story is going to be neat. I always appreciate the opportunity. So,
yeah. Do you think they'll flesh out a lot of the side content, perhaps?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, sort of like villains you fight in the area which didn't get that much time other than a boss fight, which may become more full-fledged characters in this. And it will be interesting to see how they, a large part of the game is kind of a farming sim element. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle that. Obviously it's going to be much reduced. You're not going to be sitting there 20 minutes watching her plough fields, because that would be the most boring show.
No, but I can imagine that's a good opportunity for like flashbacks or character growth. Like that kind of farming situation is perfect for that sort of thing. So maybe they make the most of it. Who knows?
Well, that's it. A lot of the sort of when you're not off doing like the action fighting by yourself, you're at sort of this homestead where the other characters, this family she's stuck with, are at. So sort of having them have chats and heart-to-hearts whilst they do like farming and stuff, it's sort of, I can very well see how they'd incorporate it. And I just hope as well that they bring in some of the music from the game and like give it a more orchestral feel to it or whatever, because the soundtrack was god tier. I mean, literally, because you're playing as a goddess, but you know, it was really excellent. So hopefully that continues, as well as some original tracks. But yeah, I think it's meant to be coming out this year. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm definitely hyped to see more about that. But
I will say, I'm always a sucker for when, you know, games with like very recognisable motifs, like those motifs are then used in new sorts of parts of the soundtrack. That's always a very fun thing. So
absolutely,
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. And moving over to some game stuff, and March 10th is of course Mario Day, and there wasn't a heck of a lot. I mean, probably the biggest thing we got from some news announcements we got was the whole thing about the Mario movie sequel, but we did an entire video breaking that down and our thoughts and predictions, so go check that out. We don't really have anything more to add here. But all that remains is, first of all, we got dates for the Thousand Year Door remake and Luigi's Mansion 2, which are coming out in May and June respectively. Not too much to say there, except those are literally the final Nintendo games we know coming out, with confirmed release dates. Other than, you know, like Prime 4, which is nebulous. And that's such a weird point to be at, where, like, we know nothing. And those are 2 remakes as well, you know. But we know nothing else after those. So, Direct in June? You would think so. Surely.
Right? Yeah, but, you know. That's how it goes with this sort of thing, especially really in this point in time.
Yeah, we're sort of, it's good to have confirmation for those, but we're definitely going to be waiting on what else is coming, because there isn't really anything at the moment. And the only other thing we got from Mario Day was NSO, where they added, like, Dr. Mario and Game Boy Mario Tennis, and does anyone care? Do you care, Kai?
That's the question, isn't it? No, not really.
It's like, I have no problems with them bringing these like more smaller, obscure games. Like, bring every game to NSO, you know? That's not the problem. It's just, was that really the best they could get as an announcement? Like, not even Mario Land 1 isn't even on NSO yet. I don't know why. That would have been perfect. But
yeah,
sure, give us Tennis and another version of Dr. Mario. It's like, it's fine, but Nintendo have got to be cooking, because it was a very quiet Mario Day, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'm still expecting they're making some sort of big new game. What it will be, I mean, we could have so much speculation that we've already kind of done, but yeah, I think that's probably where they've put their resources right now, and they've got like a small team being like, okay, quick, pick up the pieces in the meantime, please.
Yeah. Basically, they're just giving us enough, like, sort of drip-feeding little bits to say, yeah, there's still stuff coming, you know, we're still making games, but we're not ready to tell you the major things we're doing yet. So who knows when that'll be ready. We did a discussion on that as well, so check out our Switch 2 theory discussion whenever we did that. That's also on the channel. But we won't beat a dead horse any longer, so I think that's really about it for Mario Day, unless you've got anything else to say about the event.
Pretty much. Yeah, nothing to add. It was pretty dull.
And moving on to a topic I added in here, which is really rumours, but I just thought this was interesting enough to mention, which is, we're all fed up with Switch Pro rumours. How about PlayStation 5 Pro rumours? Because there's been talk of an upgraded model coming, which, higher specs of course, if I attempted to go into the details, it would just hurt our friend James, because I know nothing about tech, so I won't. But, like, even it says, like, potentially being able to output 8K. And I don't know what you're thinking of this, Kai, but I almost feel like, do we need this yet? Like, they've barely made the most out of the PlayStation 5. We're only
That's
just
exactly
getting,
it.
like,
Is as much as this hardware
Yeah.
people might want to big up all the time, if there aren't the games to actually support that, then what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there are already so few like PlayStation 5 exclusives that are taking full advantage of the console. We're only sort of just getting out of that range of split releases that came out on both PS4 and PS5. And whilst there's always stuff they could make it run a little better, make it look a little better, but I feel like games are becoming so big budget now on PlayStation and so sort of out of proportion where I don't think that even if the technology improves, I don't think the technology for developing games is going to keep up with the output, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's also that AAA games AAA companies are in a bit of a difficult situation. I don't think we are the most informed people to go into the details on that, but
Nope.
The industry is struggling with these huge companies, and that
a lot of firings.
Again just supports the idea. Yeah, exactly. So it just supports again the idea that like they don't have the teams to keep up with what these new consoles can technically put out. Like there aren't the resources for that. There's always going to be a couple people and places that can do that, but the large majority just aren't going to be able to make use of it. So it does make you wonder, is it worth it? I don't know, maybe if they put like Final Fantasy Remake Part 3 or something on there, but like outside of that, I don't know.
Like, it's weird because when you think about it, like, yeah, we are 3.5 years about into the PlayStation 5's lifespan, so it's not really a odd time to be putting out a Pro, but it just, like you say, just with the way the gaming climate is at the moment, but also things from the consumer perspective, like, sure, maybe it can output 8K. Who do you know who has an 8K TV? No one. Like, it's just not really
it's not appealing to the wider market. It's like, these very specific nerds. It's like, I know that's a very strong term for us to use when we run a Nintendo podcast, but like, that's basically what it is.
But like, I think even a lot of like the big tech, people who are really into getting the most recent modern console and the best TV, I think even a lot of those don't have 8K TVs yet, because it's just not an affordable and viable option. So
it's just not normal.
It will be interesting to see. Obviously, this is still rumours. It will be interesting to see if a Pro does happen, like how it pans out. But I'm fine with my PS5 still. I'm still using it mostly for backlog stuff anyway. But it's an interesting climate, that's for sure. But
yeah, and it'll be even more ironic if, like, in terms of there's not that many PS5 exclusive games and Xbox and stop making games for the current console before you start worrying about the next one. Nintendo gets a pass on that for now because the Switch is on the end of its rope.
Yeah,
but I don't. Let me tell you. Once we get to the Switch 2 and that starts happening, I don't want to hear anyone for the next 5 years minimum start talking about what console they do next. Okay, we don't need another.
Kai, this will be the news topic every bunch of jokers for the next 5 years, and you know it. The moment that a Switch 2 comes out, it'll be, when's the Switch 2
Switch
Pro?
The Switch 2 Pro, yeah.
You know it's gonna be immediate.
Yeah.
Switch 2 Lite. We've been pretty down on the last two topics, so let's get some positivity going, especially something for you to talk about, Kai. Because Inazuma 11 Victory Road finally had its beta test release. The game is real, and we've both played it, and it's good. Like, I'll hand over to you, Kai, but it's fun.
Yeah, so obviously this is a thing that I've kind of talked about here and there in podcast videos and the previous games and all of that, but this game has been in sort of the making for the best part of around 7 or 8 years.
I remember you mentioning it in like one of our first podcasts back in 2020,
Yeah, I mentioned it back then. I remember hearing news about it like yonks ago. Yeah. So it's very fun that finally the game has actually come to fruition when a lot of us thought it would just never happen. So it's been great to see. It's been really good news. And obviously they've just got the demo release now, which is very simple. It's just got 3 teams worth of players. You can play online or against some bots, and like that's it. There's no story, no progress, no much of anything else. But At the very least, it's getting everyone used to the gameplay because Inazuma 11 gameplay is very clearly designed for the DS with moving players using the stylus. We are on a Switch, we can't do that. And they struggled for years and years because they didn't know what to do. And they finally created a system, and it's very different. It's not traditional in for this series does in the slightest, but I think that's for the best. I think that what they've done is made a gameplay system that is more interesting. The matches are a lot shorter, which is nice. I just feel like they've done something really good where the core of the game is still there, but the gameplay is incredibly different.
What I compared
things
it
are
like...
janky.
Yeah, they are. But what I compared it like when I was talking to you was like it sort of does for Inazuma 11 what Remake did for Final Fantasy 7, which is it takes like the basic concept of you still got your ATB gauge and you go from a menu and things slow down to like select your move. You still got that sort of more slower tactical element to it, but it gives it more of an action, fast-paced kind of feel to it, where you actually have to move around the field yourself and sort of dodge other players on the fly as well, and it sort of combines both. And Inazuma 11 kind of Victory Road is kind of doing that for the series, where there's elements of it almost playing like a FIFA game and how you're directly on the pitch in the heat of the moment, but you still have those tactics. You still have those moments where it slows down and you have to pick which move you're going to use, or if you're going to pass it to another player in a sort of a slow down zone, and it sort of gets it off perfectly. So it's got what, in my understanding, is like the core of the franchise, but it feels modern and new enough to play, and it just kind of works, I feel like.
Yeah, so many things have been revolutionised here and changed to try and make the game more interesting, more varied, more fun. And I think they've achieved it. Now, obviously, this isn't perfect. There are several issues that have made me very angry at times when playing the game. Maybe where things don't work or something, but that's why this is a beta. That is the point of it existing. And as a result, it's kind of okay. Yeah, so it's been really good to see. It's really fun, looks great, feels great, and I'm sure a lot of these issues will be ironed out. Even mainly from the fact that you often play these games for the story. It's like an integral part of it. So enjoying the game without story even is just a good sign that when they add that in, it's going to be a really good experience. I think the real highlight for me overall has been that the game. They recently announced that the game had, I believe, I think it was 500,000 downloads or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know numbers on demos on how many downloads they get compared to the main game. There's probably some science I don't understand with that. I mean, but it sounds good though, right? 500,000.
Well, they announced it themselves, right? And if they announce it, that means it's good. So
yeah, that's true. If it wasn't good, they wouldn't have announced it or something. Yeah. But that feels really bloody good. So I wasn't expecting it in the slightest, but I'm very, very happy about that. And I don't doubt that as the full game releases, we'll have more to talk about, a lot more. So yeah, at the moment, very fun. Give it a try if you haven't, because the demo's free, so do it.
Yeah, there are problems with certain mechanics that could use balancing. When we played it together, and I'd like to point out, I did beat Kai in one game. Only one of two, but it made me feel good.
We're one each at the moment.
We are. I feel like if we played again, since you've been playing it, I think you're playing it right now, I would probably be destroyed.
I am, yes.
But that's the thing, although there are sort of problems in balancing with certain things like special moves and being really difficult to build up the gauge to use them, and certain other ideas that will get ironed out. It's a beta, like we said. It's just fun at its core, and I wasn't even sure if I'd like this kind of thing, but I was sort of just thinking I might get it for memes and for Deer because we know he's in it. But no, I was enjoying it, and although I probably won't touch online much outside of friendlies with you guys, I'll definitely go in for the story mode and the mode where you get to experience all the past teams and players. Dear. So yeah, it's just fun, and it hit me in a way that the Strikers beta that put me off the game. I was like, but this isn't that. This works, and it's nice to see that Inazuma 11, and Level 5 in general. They're making a comeback. It's happening, and it feels more real.
Oh, it's been
that we got to play
huge,
it.
and it's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a very good period to be in, where like Level 5 was in a very dark period of its history for a good couple of years. But they've really pulled out all the stops this year, and I could not be happier about that, considering how much I like that development team. So, yes, all smiles, all very good. It's fun. Give it a go, and this is not the end of talking about this game, I don't doubt.
Absolutely not. We'll definitely be covering it more when any other news drops or when the actual game comes out, hopefully this year. So, yeah, fingers crossed for more soon. But the only thing we have left to really talk about this month is, well, kind of a big thing, really. I couldn't not throw this in there, given the name of our podcast and all. The Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Artbook has leaked online. I think it's out in Japan and was coming out, and there's loads of scans around, and there's some big, surprising kind of lore stuff that got thrown out there, just very casually. And I will pre-warn you now, full spoilers for Xenoblade 3 and Future Redeemed ahead, so if you haven't played
basically
those...
the whole series.
the entire series, really. So if you're not up on Xenoblade, just, like I said, timestamps below, you can skip ahead to the next segment of the podcast. But, I mean, Kai, you read into this more than me. What are sort of like the big things worth talking about, outside of our dumb April Fool's video we did? Let's ignore that one.
Well, the start of that was true. Now, they are
true.
still working on translations. Not the whole thing has been leaked. But a lot of it has. And one of the main things as a disclaimer is this obviously was not meant to be leaked. There is no plans for there to be an English version, if I remember right. They basically said like that's not a Nintendo thing, that's whoever else is publishing it. Then there just needs to be an English publisher, which there isn't. And these were not meant to be leaked. There are bad outcomes, so like going forward I don't think there'll be many more leaks, because it's sort of... It's kind of the same reasoning of why Smash Bros doesn't have many cutscenes anymore, because Sakurai was like, oh, they're ruined by everyone playing them online. Not necessarily something I agree with, but I digress. That's the reasoning they're going with. But as for the info we do have, it's pretty interesting. The big one is Lucky 7. And what the deal is with that, you know, what it's like, oh my god. That is how we spoke it in the shorts. Yeah, I mean, you can say it because you know what it is. I'm almost... this sounds weird, but I don't want to say it because my dad plays Xenoblade and he's in the room next to me, so I don't want him to hear me. So I'd rather you say it.
I mean, Lucky 7 is literally 7. It's Fiora.
Yeah.
And this idea that some characters were brought to Ionios as objects, which is very interesting, and we kind of already got a hint of that, where we sort of saw that Numa's core crystal was inside Matthew's gauntlets, and the sort of the tease that Malos in some form might be inside N's sword. So it's all like stuff that adds up with details we've gotten, and Riku even says as much, that the memories of special people or something along those lines are in Lucky 7. And there's some debate about whether this is a translation issue and it should have said memories of like a person instead or not. But yeah, it's just the sword is Fiora, and she gets yeeted by Noah at the end of the game. Let's not forget that. But it's
it's so funny.
Just Shulk runs up from where he is in Origin, Fiora. But it's interesting, and who knows what this kind of like raises more questions than it answers. I don't hate the idea. It's just like, okay, sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, it vaguely makes sense, but to be honest, I would not have guessed it. I mean, the Pyromithra, the Aegis swords are a lot easier to see coming. This, not so much.
Yeah, it's definitely like a bizarre thing to sort of come out and just say like, yeah, that's just Fiora. It's like, oh, okay, sure. Like, I mean, it's the whole thing with like how everyone's brought to Ionios and how the Liberators are different to the main people that are part of the cycle, and exactly how the cycle works. There's still loads of vagueness towards that, and I think there's always going to be. Like, Takahashi might come out every few years and make some comment or reveal something in a spin-off game, and we'll be like, wait,
Probably.
what? But it's never it's never gonna be like a complete anthology of this is exactly how it happened, and I don't think it needs to be. But I still appreciate us getting. Yeah, but I still appreciate getting these like little weird tidbits. Like, yes, Fiora's a sword now. I mean, the series is known for people in swords, so sure, let's roll with it.
Although, you know what that tells me is that I saw, as soon as I saw that, like, oh, people are objects, I was like, oh my god, because now, as if there wasn't at the beginning of Xenoblade 3's life cycle, everyone going, oh, this character is the kid of this and this character is this and this, like, just referencing Xenoblade 1 and 2 constantly. Everyone is going to look at every single item that has existed in Xenoblade 3 and try and associate it with a character now. Like, every single, like, trust me, it's going to happen.
I feel like the lantern in Colony 9 has a very close resemblance to Ryan when you look at it from a certain angle.
Manana's pot, I'm just saying. Like, it's
Who...
someone.
I reckon it could be Juju, if I had to guess.
I think possibly. Very maybe. You know?
I feel sorry for the poor object that happens to be Muri Muri, but besides that, it's And even, what was the other thing that sort of came out was Nopon, right?
Eternal Nopon, yeah, so they don't have a lifespan. They don't, because I asked that when I played through the game. They don't live within the system. They just are eternal and come from either universe.
And it's like, yeah, they're Nopon, I mean, sure.
It's quite funny. Yeah, I like it.
It tracks. I like that bit. It's like, it's just like, like common variety Nopon, common variety species. Yes, that's it. It's I'm perfectly cool with Nopon just being this weird anomaly. But were there any other big? I can't remember much. Was there any other things that were revealed, or was that the main stuff?
I can check because I have it on my phone. So let me quickly pull it up. But I believe that was basically it.
Yeah. And,
yeah.
Who knows what more will come out over the years? Who knows what's next for Xenoblade? We did a discussion on that as well. But it's fun, and I do hope it would be nice to get like an official English release. I don't think it's likely, but I mean I'd pick it up. So because just even besides like the big lore stuff, it's cool seeing like the concept art. Some different artwork and that of the characters, and like seeing how the sort of early concepts or like movesets and stuff. That's all neat and that's all interesting. So it's just fascinating from any angle, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's very cool stuff to see, and I don't think there was much other content in there. There were a couple of bits of concept art of I think it was Yoren, Dirk, and someone else. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, Melia, I think.
Right.
But yeah, that was basically it. There's probably a lot more in there, but there's a good chance that we don't find out exactly what that is for a little while, at least.
Yeah. But that is basically it for the news.
It's good what we got, though.
Yeah, it's been some interesting stuff, even in the...
everything? Oh, damn.
I think that's it, unless you've got any other news stories, Kai. Do you remember anything?
The only thing I can think of is the Princess Peach game released, which we were very confused on the existence of.
Yeah, that's true. I tried the demo.
People seem to have received it really well, right?
Yeah, that is true. Like, people were really positive on it. I thought the demo was exactly what I thought it was, which is, it's cute, but it's like nothing amazing. Even with the good reviews, I'm not going to pick it up with all the other things I'm still wanting to play through, but I'm glad to see it wasn't just a dud, you know? It's something.
Yeah. And I think I finally figured out, this is a bit of a tangent, but I figured out why I was so perplexed by the game. And this is going to sound a little bit weird. My brain has been cooked by strategy and RPG games. Like,
yeah.
I don't expect every game to be a huge think fest of 9,000 hours, but like, I think it's the kind of thing where, like, you know, even Mario, which is very simple, you know what to expect with it. This was an entirely new concept where it didn't even seem to have that status quo to it. So I was looking at that going like, you know, my brain cooked by strategy games going like, where's the gameplay? Where's the gameplay? The gameplay is incredibly simple and just like kind of fun. Like that is the gameplay, and just I've gotten so
Yeah.
used to playing games that make me use too much brain power, more than I have at capacity. That seeing a game that's just simple fun, that was almost reminiscent of Kirby and that sort of thing at times, with just having straightforward gameplay, different concepts here and there. I don't know. I think that's what confused me. But now looking at it, it's just like, yeah, it's just like really, really straightforward, really simple, but honestly fun. There's absolutely a market for simpler games. You know, I was helping my sister play. She got Hogwarts Legacy, so she was like, I don't understand the game, and it was because she'd never played an RPG before. So she didn't understand the start of RPGs are really long with tutorials. And I think that was my eureka moment where I was like, oh my god, I'm having the opposite issue, that I'm too baked. And now, like, I don't understand the concept of a simple game. So it's just that little like moment of clarity of like, yeah, games can be simple and fun. I mean, I already knew that. I've played Mario Wonder, but, you know, it's like, I don't know, it just took a little bit to click with a new franchise, I think.
Looking at Princess Peach Showtime, like, where's the skill tree at? Not good enough. But,
God, that calls me out so much. It's such a call out.
But I do get what you mean. Yeah, it's kind of kind of nice to have just a smaller, easier game. And some like, even I know this isn't quite the same because this is an RPG, but when I played Mario RPG, it's just so basic compared to all the complicated systems of Xenoblade or Kingdom Hearts I was playing before that, or Final Fantasy I'm playing now. And it's kind of refreshing to have something that's just simple in a way. So yeah, I'm glad it's doing well. But that is it for the news for this month. So let's move on to our final segment of the podcast, Games Time, baby, where we talk about games that we've been playing. And Kai, I know you've got a few you're thinking about, so why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, where to start? How many have you got out of curiosity?
Just one, and I haven't even finished it. It's been my life this last month.
So I will talk about mine to make chronological sense. So, I've been talking about it on the podcast for years, and I finally got around to playing and finishing Final Fantasy VII Remake. The first part. Rebirth is what you're going to do, because that's actually like the current and modern thing. I'm playing the one that came out years ago, because I procrastinate playing backlog games like that. But we finally got there, I finally played it, and it was super fun. I didn't expect anything different. I've been very much like looking forward to it for a long time. So it's exactly kind of what I thought it would be like. Very good fun, gameplay was good. You know, the side quests that were in there were a good time, good side modes, graphics were great. Just overall, just really good. I mean, everyone knows what Final Fantasy VII Remake is like at this point. I don't have much unique to say. It's just like, yeah, I played it like everyone else, and I enjoyed it like everyone else because it's a good game. There's not much else to it.
Yeah, because you haven't played the original, right? But you have a bit of a vague familiarity with it. If I'm correct.
I know the plot outline of Final Fantasy VII, the original. I know the general story beats, places of who's meant to die and where. But I haven't physically played it or done or even watched a playthrough. I'm not even a Persona fan. But I do have a pretty like good idea of, in general, what happens. So yeah, you know, I sort of I over time understood what the point of the ghost fellas were, and how all that worked.
Whispers.
Yes, so I understood those in the end. And yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting how it all worked. Especially at the end, which I did have to go and read a Reddit post on, unfortunately, because I didn't fully get it. But
no one fully gets
overall,
it.
It was really good. Yeah, and I'm very much hyped for Rebirth. I saw how much potential there was for it to be open world, when Remake is a lot more linear than I realised.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing Rebirth, seeing how they utilise the open world, and I've heard just the plethora of things in it. And yeah, it should be a good time.
And that's really my perfect way to segue into that. And of course, I'll preface this, I won't be talking any spoilers, just vague opinions and some gameplay stuff that we saw in trailers and that, so nothing spoilery ahead here. But I've been playing it, and it's interesting because, like, you comment on how like linear Midgar is, the remake. And that's one thing that I found when I played the original Final Fantasy VII. Midgar was actually my favourite part of the game, because of how like compact it was, how tight everything was, and then when you get to the open world, it's cool that you have this world to explore, but things get a lot messier and looser, and you're jumping between different story beats with a bit less focus, and it just kind of loses a bit of that polished nature that the early parts of the game had. So I was interested how that would apply to Rebirth, like, am I going to feel the same way? Is this effect going to still be present in the full-on remake of this part of the game? And I do think it is there to an extent, but ultimately, like, god damn it, Rebirth is great. Like, it's fantastic, and no surprises there really, because the remake was good, and this is just more of the same. But I've put 70 hours into it over the past month, and I'm not done yet, and I think I'm close, but I don't know. This game has my soul at this point, and I don't care. I want to play other games, but I even considered like playing another game in the background, but I can't because I just want all my time going to this. It's that engaging, it's that engrossing. And really, like, at its core, it's the same as Final Fantasy VII Remake, like gameplay wise. The combat's the same, except you've got a few new moves, a few little neat tweaks there, here and there, and you've got some new party members. The sort of whole system of you've got these more linear chapters, and then between those you've got certain chapters where you can do side quests and explore an area. That same formula's all there, except rather than exploring a small town in those chapters, you're exploring an entire huge chunk of Midgar, and boy, that makes it take longer. But it's just so well done in how visually impressive it is for a start. Like, although there's maybe a bit of the visual fidelity is arguably lost in some places, it's a little less polished than Remake perhaps. The trade-off is you are like seamlessly in these huge open areas, then walking into a town and then going into a house in that town with no loading screens. I mean, these areas are segmented. It's more like Xenoblade than Breath of the Wild, how you have these different sections. But even
I think
still,
that works though. It maintains
does.
story integrity. It makes it so much harder when you can literally go anywhere like Tears of the Kingdom, because we know how the story is not as good necessarily. So I think it fits.
It's the best possible way they could do it for a game like Rebirth, and it works. These areas are really fun to explore. There's a nice variety in them, and that's one benefit from Remake, whereas that was all largely in Midgar, which is cities and then dirty slums, and a bit of both in there. But here now you've got more that you've got like these entire systems of caverns, and you've got big, forests, and you've got areas that are big open deserts, and it's not as varied as something like a Xenoblade, but there's still so much out there, and it is just really like charming to run around, especially because you've got your chocobos, which each have a different function depending on the region you're in. Each chocobo has its own mechanics. Some are better than others, but it means that the way you explore the game is always interesting and developing and changing. So
what's an example of the mechanics? I'm actually curious on that. Like, what's like the first one, for example, so it's not a spoiler?
So the first one that has a unique mechanic is it can like climb up certain walls, for example.
Oh, cool. So what I'm hearing is this is a better version of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's legendaries having mobility.
Probably. Yeah, it's along those lines, that's for sure.
Probably. I say better version because I don't like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
I've got that impression, Kai. I can't blame you. I mean, this game looks and runs better than Scarlet and Violet, that's for sure. But
honestly, yeah. That's for another time to rant about that, though.
Oh yes, for sure. But like, I think there are valid complaints about how it can get a bit too much to do in side quests, where you essentially have these generic monster quests, and people compare it to like a Ubisoft open world game where you have your check marks on the map and you just mark off those points and that's it. And it can start to drag a little bit, but one, it's optional. If you just want to do like just the main side quests, you can. If you want to just do story, you can. You don't have to be like a sucker like me who does all the intel quests. I just can't help myself.
That's good.
But also,
it's good that you can choose.
Yeah, but also it takes you around to these different areas of the map, and I kind of like getting to see all of it because it's interesting. And you often get little story bits and side quests. There is constantly like new information and new dialogue, and it means you never have to grind. So it kind of gets that balance right. I think the story chapters are still there, where you go all in on just focusing on story bits. I feel like there is a valid complaint that it does mean the story's far more spread out than it was in Remake. And I think that speaks to like that complaint I had about the original game, which is it's definitely messier. Rebirth is still messier than Remake, both in terms of gameplay being separated so much, but also in terms of even the story, even if you're doing just the story does jump around between different characters and different arcs a lot more, and there's not as much of one key focus as there was in Remake. So it's hard to say, like, if you were to compare them, which is better. Like, part of me still does prefer the more simplistic linear Remake approach, but that's also like you don't need to compare them because Rebirth wasn't meant to be exactly the same. It had to tackle this open world, and I think they did it in the best way they possibly could. That is just really engaging and fun. It's beautifully animated, everything. The characters still have their moments and the voice acting's excellent. Soundtrack, do I need to say it? It's god tier. And getting to see these places, these events and story beats that I was familiar with from the original fully realised with voice acting, and getting to actually see how the towns connect without just painted backgrounds and little polygonal characters. It's just so masterfully done. And that's not even to get onto the story, which, again, I won't say any specifics. A lot of it's really good, and there's still a lot of mysteries and like what's going to change, what's going to stay the same, and I'm still discovering that now because I haven't finished the game yet. But I'll give my more thoughts on that next month, when I've actually beaten it. But it's got my attention the entire way through, and if you liked Remake, you're gonna love Rebirth. You know, just there's no two ways about it. They just, for an impossible challenge of how do you take this game and bring it into a huge open environment, they did it in the only way they could, and it just feels seamless. So this is Game of the Year contender for real. No surprises, but it's gonna be interesting when it comes to that time. But masterpiece already. Like, I haven't beaten it. It's a masterpiece, no doubts. Ooh.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah. I just have to exhale after that. I had a lot to say there, and there's going to be more to say, but oh, it's good. It's so very good, and you're going to have a blast, Kai, when you get to it. So buckle up.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it'll be a very good time. So yeah, should be a good one. I'll get around to it. Maybe in another like 4 years. You know, wait that much time.
Yeah.
Again. No, I don't think
after
I could
Astral
contain
Chain,
it.
right? Yes.
Something tells me one of those will be happening a lot sooner than the other.
I get that impression, sadly. But before I cry, Kai, what else have you been playing you want to talk about?
So last one for me is one more game, which is fun, and you know, I've been talking about it for like quite a few months now on the podcast, technically. Disco Elysium, finally beat it on stream, as you
Yes.
you saw.
I did indeed.
Oh man, what a game! It's a unique one. If nothing else, it's so unique.
Very
just
much
the way
so.
that it conveys itself. It's hardly even a game and more of an experience. And I know that sounds like really sort of what's the word? I don't know, superfluous for me to say, but genuinely, it's like it's a whole experience to try and understand at first what the game's about, because I went into it completely blind on how the game even worked. And then you're trying to figure out like what's the point of the game, what's the story, where is this going, and I feel like it can be incredibly easy to miss the point. You know, sort of not understanding why the game exists and what it's trying to convey. I did pick up on it, although maybe not as much as I wish I could have, as I played through. Now that I've given it a couple of days to think about it, I have a lot more of appreciation for the game. And yeah, for those who don't know, just to give like the tiniest bit of context without spoiling, this is a mystery murder, like detective game. You're a detective, and you're just trying to solve a murder. And your gameplay is you run around the world and you talk to people. So, you know, it's kind of a visual novel in that sense of the majority of gameplay is talking. However, it does everything in such a unique way. You know, the main characters are all the voices in your head who have all different personalities telling you things, but they're not like overbearing or obnoxious, apart from the ones that are deliberately obnoxious. But you know, they all tell you different things. Depending on the stats you put into them, some will become more prominent, some of them won't talk much at all, which creates entirely different playthroughs, because you'll learn different information or have different ways of completing things. So it's a wholly unique experience to figure that out and then figure out what the reason of the game even is. I, throughout my university time, read quite a bit on political philosophy. That was my big thing. Disco Elysium has some political philosophy in. That is sort of part of the game. But the reason I bring it up is that in a lot of political philosophy books, especially more modern ones, they have a certain style of writing that's very long-winded, very difficult to track. However, it's often got quite a bit of good dry humour, and when you pick up on the points, they are really, really interesting. And I think Disco Elysium follows a similar suit in the way that it conveys everything, where it's wordy. It's super wordy. If you don't like reading or trying to understand all these difficult concepts, don't play it. It's not for you. However, for anyone who wants like a reading experience, this is it. Just the sheer amount of autonomy you get in the game for how you want to complete it, the different options you can take, the different optional dialogue that can appear at any given point. It's got a very dry, funny style to it. It faces concepts of all different kinds, from like alcoholism to purpose to existentialism. It goes everywhere. It does a lot of things, and I think it does a lot of those things well. My only real complaint is that the game leans so much into its identity of being quite vague and interpretive that sometimes it forgets to tell you basic core mechanics of the game.
Yes.
It did struggle in areas, and it was kind of glitchy with like the quest log or the skill check system. However, overall, that's minor by comparison. It was a very, very good experience, and I'd say anyone who wants to do a little thonking, give it a try, because it's a very, very good experience. And I think most people who have played it wouldn't recommend it, can't recommend it enough, because it's so interesting. So yeah, just a really good time. I don't know what your thoughts were as a viewer on that.
Yeah, because I, of course, watched most of it, and it's just a fascinating experience. And I think what really speaks to it is, like you say, the writing, where it just gets that perfect balance, where it can be very heavy and intense, but also it's just got this very dry sense of humour, which I feel, especially, is like it's very in line with like British humour, I feel like, as well. So that kind of works in that approach, where it's very sort of depressing in its own way, but it can also be just wacky. Characters like Egghead and Hardcore, and it's not. It's a very French weird game. Yes, that's true. Yeah, very much so.
A lot of the this is going to sound offensive, with how miserable the game is. A lot of the time, it's a very existential and miserable game, and it's very French feeling a lot of the time. And I don't mean that necessarily in an offensive way. But I think it really adds to the experience of, like, you're not playing this for funs and smiles and climactic moments and all of this stuff. It doesn't do traditional game things. It subverts the system mostly for the best, and it just creates a very thoroughly interesting situation to put yourself in.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it has, like you say, with like the different ways you can play it. It needs like time to sit on it and think about it. It needs another replay, really, where you go through and do things a different way. But there's so much in the game and so much thought into it, and a lot of it we probably missed even in what we did, or what you did and what I watched. But that's kind of what makes it so fascinating. So it's a shame that it seems like there's no like stuff on like a sequel sort of went down, it feels like, and the developers might be in some trouble or something financially or something along those lines. I remember seeing, which is a shame, because clearly, like, they put so much into this game and they have talent. So I would have been fascinated to see what they could do next.
Yeah, like you say, it is a shame, but hopefully something turns around, although I don't think it will. But regardless, this is a game that, like, I think will keep going on as one of the best. What's the term? Not visual novel, because that's not the term. Sort of a narrative-based game. I think it will go down as one of the best narratives you can get.
Absolutely. And that definitely, well, yeah, that's it for the podcast. Been a lot of interesting stuff to talk about here. It's gone on longer than I thought even. But it must come to an end. So thank you guys for watching, for listening, be it on YouTube, or of course we have audio-only versions of the podcast on Spotify and other podcasting sites. We're everywhere under the name BunchaJokahs, so give us a subscribe, check out our other content if you're interested. And Kai, where else can people find you at?
They can find me at my Twitch, twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. Because I finished Disco Elysium, I don't actually have my plans set in stone yet, but I'll be doing stuff. Fun stuff, hopefully. If it wasn't fun, I probably wouldn't be streaming it, so...
Well, Disco Elysium wasn't always fun, but it was fun when it mattered, so, you know. And it was always good at the very least.
Yeah, it was.
But you can find all, of course, that links in the description below, as well as a link to our friend Sam, who's our graphic designer, makes our logo and our thumbnail, so thank you once again, Sam. And that's it for now. We will see you guys in the next video. Take care, and goodbye.
See ya.